NewOrleans.football is where you read all the information. You got to subscribe if you're a Saints fan because it is the best, man. He's got the best information and it's the best site. NewOrleans.football, great podcast alongside of that website as well. And it is Nick Underhill who's the author and publisher, and he is with us every Tuesday. Compliments of former LSU Tiger and current attorney Chris Barrett. Nick, good morning. Happy belated Thanksgiving.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing all right. Saints have the number one defense in the league. Did you anticipate that at any point this season?
Well, I mean, it does help that they got to divide their previous stats by one more game without actually having to play a team. I do think that they're probably playing like one of the best defenses in the NFL. I think they are fifth in points. I tend to look at points a little bit more than yards. And, they've just had a couple weird games, too, that I think help with that. The Denver game, San Francisco didn't really have any players, although they looked better this week than they did a week ago. And I'm not saying that to take anything away from the defense. I think their rise has been legitimate. I think they are playing like one of the better units in the league, but like ranking them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like it's just tough to do because this year's so weird. And I think that they did benefit tremendously in this last game against Denver. Definitely helped fix the curve from earlier in the season when they were struggling mightily, with executing coverages and stuff. But they did fix that. And, I do think that the tape would bear out that they're probably top, 5-10 unit in the league right now.
Do you feel a bit validated to see that, considering all the preseason conversations we had versus how they came out the gate?
Yeah, I mean, I was out here like Flavor Flav just hyping them, and so yeah, I mean, I thought I was gonna have to answer for that at some point, and I started to doubt myself a little bit. You start to question what you're looking at, and if you were seeing the things you should have seen.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's definitely for me and my brand. It's definitely good that they're playing better.
I love your film study, Nick. If you don't follow Nick on Twitter, you should. He includes screenshots, everything else, and again, Center for New Orleans football. What were your main takeaways from your Saints film room this week?
I thought that they did a really good job. This wasn't the most interesting game to watch, and I can understand it being a little bit boring just because it didn't really feel like a legitimate competition. But some of the stuff the Saints were doing in this game, Sean Payton's known for being someone that beats you formationally and with personnel groupings and Alvin over, and they got a two-man advantage if you count Taysom as a quarterback, just for a run, and he just runs in standing up, and it was stuff like that. They had clap in motion throughout the game, on power running plays, and they were just doing all kinds of stuff that you don't normally see them do. And I think the creativity to protect Taysom Hill in this game came out in a big way.
So, one interesting story that I don't know how deep it goes or how much of truth there is to it, Nick, is that after they figured out Denver's quarterback situation, that this game plan underwent some changes, right? Making it more conservative, maybe playing things more close to the vest. Is there any truth there? Like, how much did the Saints change when they learned that, they were going to be facing a guy who's not really an NFL quarterback?
They did barely throw the ball, but early in the game, they did come out and they were trying to execute some stuff, and I don't think it really worked as well as hoped. And maybe there was some. I think you can see early on, like, hey, if we don't turn the ball over, we're going to win this game. Like, we should lean into the score. And I think there was maybe a little bit of both. I think that maybe it wasn't as conservative, but I think it got more conservative as it went on.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Talking to Nick Underhill at Nick_Underhill. Sign up for NewOrleans.football. It's the best Saints site out there. You highlighted Adam Troutman on Twitter, Nick, and it's kind of funny because, just scrolling my timeline, and I see you talking about him, and then I see the Saints PFF account talking about how he's actually been, for 3 of the last 4 weeks, the highest graded player. Now, granted, he's not getting most plays, but the highest graded player has been dominant run blocking. What have you seen out of the rookie tight end?
I think he's running routes really well. I think that's one thing that stands out. And 2 weeks ago, he ran more, and it looked even better then. His run blocking is really good, and I think the willingness to run block is the thing that stands out the most to me. And it was even there in college, but he wasn't very refined. Like, he was just kind of someone that would just be the first guy through the line, flying through, just willing to hit somebody, not necessarily knowing how to block, but wanting to block. And I think that's probably the most important element of it. You get guys like Jimmy Graham who don't want to block, and you can't really teach someone that doesn't want to do it. He wants to do it, and he's very tenacious, and I think his technique as a run blocker is coming up. Sometimes in pass blocking, he was better in this game. The week before against Atlanta, it was rough, and I think throughout the season that there's probably more rough moments than good moments, just because I don't think his technique and strength is quite all the way there. Like when he's, coming up from a 3-point, like he gets blown back a little bit. When he's moving forward as a run blocker, he gets a little momentum going and he's able to hold his ground a little bit better. And, he's hitting linebackers and defensive backs instead of getting blown up by, whoever's the Cam Jordan on the other team. And he's just not quite at that point yet, but I think he will be. And, the upside with him, I think if you look at this rookie class, he's the one guy that you probably feel the most optimistic about, and everybody else is kind of like, like we'll see how it goes with the rest of these guys. But I think he's definitely the one guy that has, you can see it right now, that has a bright future.
Well, looking to the future, Nick, this Falcons game feels pretty interesting. I've kind of been feeling a 1-1 split, which is, it's a pretty milquetoast call, right? That's generally just how these things tend to work out. The Falcons dominate the Raiders on Sunday, but they got dominated by the Saints a couple weeks ago. How are you seeing this matchup part 2 playing out?
I think that Taysom Hill is going to have to play better in this game, and they're going to throw a lot of stuff at him. In the first game, they kind of were a little bit static on defense. It was a lot of cover 1 and cover 3, and cover 1's a man coverage, cover 3's a zone. But on the outside, you're going to get man-to-man matchups, and they're a little bit easier to read. And it's a little bit easier when it's just all single high safety, and you can kind of just see if they're playing man or zone over the middle. There isn't that much to read, and I think that Atlanta's going to come back in this game after seeing how Denver approached Taysom Hill. I know the Saints, they say it wasn't about the defense, and Taysom managed the game how they wanted them to, but Denver played a lot of coverages, and I think that the multitude of coverages played a factor in how Taysom performed in this game. And if you're the Falcons, you at least have to emulate some of that and throw some more stuff at him and make it a little bit harder for him to read the field. And if they do that, I think that levels it out a little bit, and it's a closer game. So, it's really on him and his development. And I'm not there yet with him. I know some people the first game they were ready to coordinate him. This game they're ready to throw him out of town and go with someone else, and it's over. I think we're still in the data collection element of this. I think if you look through Drew Brees' career game log, you'd find games where he just had a horrible game against a really good defensive coordinator. And I think sometimes that happens, and we'll see how he bounces back from it and keeps going. But, I think it's kind of at that evened out point. And I think this Falcons game is going to be important, at least in how he's viewed. I think it's important for him too, in his confidence. I think he's probably putting a lot of pressure on himself every game. He wants to prove it. You're 30 years old. This is kind of your window to show everybody what you can do after being doubted. And, I think there's just a lot on him, and he just needs to prove that he can go out there and do what the Saints believed he could do coming into this. And it's going to be a little bit harder. But, yeah, if he sees the field, if he can read defenses, if he can do all that stuff and prove that he can be it, I think they can win again. But, if not, it's going to be a little bit tougher. And, they're going to have to find another way to win if he struggles like he did against Denver.
Is Goodell serious with taking this pick away?
The 7th-round pick?
Yeah.
I don't think so. The guys you sign, where it hurts is because they might lose a 6th-round pick because they signed Jameis Winston too early. They traded a 6th-round pick for Tommy Stevens. I don't know if it's a big deal, though. Those guys in the 6th, 7th round, 5th round, undrafted players, they're all kind of bunched in there the same on a team's board. And you start drafting guys in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, definitely the 7th round. It's just kind of like, oh, well, other teams might be on this guy more than us. He might be hard to sign as a signing bonus. Oh, like the Falcons having a relationship with this guy's agent, and he'll sign with them because the relationship's better. So we need to beat them to the player. I think in the 7th round, you're looking at your not Adam Troutman's, but your Marquez Callaway's the same as, a Tommy Stevens. And it's just like, which one can we sign? Which one can't we sign? And you draft the one that you don't know that you can sign. So it hurts a little bit like that, but I don't think it hurts as far as like talent acquisition. I don't really, it's a gamble at that point. And, they can overcome it. It's just kind of more symbolic than anything. It's an annoyance. It's a speeding ticket, but it's not something that's going to hurt the development of your team or roster building or anything.
To me, it's just it's not, maybe hypocrisy is not there. It's a selective enforcement. There's locker rooms all over the league that have been having post-game celebrations without masks on, and yet the Saints get highlighted.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I don't want to be careful how you say things in 2020. And I want to preface this by saying that, I'm someone that's compliant with everything everybody tells you to do. I don't leave the house. I take everything seriously, but you watch videos pregame. What's the difference between a team huddling on the field and, you know, having a hype speech and your quarterback's in the middle of it screaming, and when you're screaming, spit's flying and nobody's wearing masks then, and that's okay, but then you go in a locker room and it's not. Like, I think by the time you get to Sunday, it's just kind of like everybody's out there. They're doing what they're doing. Guys are on the sideline, and now that they're starting to wear masks, like when they huddle on the sidelines and all that stuff. But, like, before then, you know, even it's not even just selective enforcement of team, because there's multiple teams on video. It's selective enforcement of, like, situations. And it just hasn't made a lot of sense. And, you know, I don't think the league has done a good job of making sense and enforcing the things that need to be enforced. You know, there's a ton of breakouts all over the place. You know, it's just kind of like they're throwing everybody out here, hoping everybody does what they're supposed to do. And then, like, they come in and make symbolic gestures at certain points to remind people. And it's just like, maybe you should have better protocols from the very start and made teams bubble in hotels and, you know, their respective cities, or done something else. But, like, yeah, I mean, you can't just come in and decide, like, we're going to hammer the Saints and then hopefully everybody falls in line. Like, that's just not a good way to do it. And, you know, hopefully they get to the end of the season. It looks like they will, but there's starting to be signs where it looks like, you know, you should be a little bit worried the way last week went. So hopefully they figure it out and they can keep it together for the next 7-8 weeks and, you know, the season ends. But the way they've done this from the start, I think is deserving of a lot of criticism, because it just doesn't seem like there was ever a great plan.
Have a great weekend, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys too.
Nick Underhill checking in with New Orleans.football and Saints conversation there. We'll close that hour 2 next.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe below. You want more great Saints content? We got it all here on Off the Bench Overtime. Check out these other videos, share with your friends, and let's grow the Who Dat Nation together. Who Dat?